Welcome to another Telltale Books video. I'm Greg, and I'm continuing my series in this video of my exploration of Manly Wade Wellman, trying to read everything I can get my hands on by him, although so far I've failed to find two of them. Just haven't been able to obtain copies of two of his stories, but I'm dealing with really, really early stories. And this is about number 7, which is from March of 1932. And it was published in Wonder Stories Quarterly, the spring 1932 issue. And it is a novelette. And I read this story in the PDF of Wonder Stories Quarterly. I don't have it in any other books or anything. So I did find a PDF of that Wonder Stories Quarterly out on the internet, and that's where I read Rebels of the Moon. The basic synopsis of this story is you have a man named O'Grady who is a secret agent, kind of a 007 type guy, or a lot like some of the interplanetary patrol officers that we saw in the work of R.F. Starzl, if you bother to read any of those after I talked about them. O'Grady then is like that. He's part of an interplanetary police force going around the solar system solving crimes, and he's sent to investigate a remote moon base on Earth's moon. And he finds that the base was created by a government official who happened to have stumbled on a fortune in diamond underneath the moon. 1932, remember, a lot we didn't know. So this government official hatches a plan to utilize a project meant to send a spaceship to Venus, but cause it to fail, which would cause space exploration to become defunded, and he would be free to go out into space because no one else would be out there, and start collecting all these diamonds and get rich off of it. O'Grady learns of this, and of course, it's his job to put a stop to it. So what you have here is space opera, and it's very conventional. It's very much like stories that a lot of other writers of the 1930s were writing. Writers like I mentioned, R.F. Starzl has a whole series of these interplanetary patrol stories, and other writers wrote similar stories that they're basically just crime stories, federal. It's like if you wrote a story about an FBI agent who foils some gang's plot to knock over Fort Knox. I mean, that's comparable to what you've got here. There's It's only science fiction by the fact that it's set out in space. Otherwise, it's just an adventure story, just a crime story, detective story. So that it's weak as science fiction, but at least here, where earlier Wellman pieces, we saw more imagination than what he's exhibiting here, but we also saw much, much weaker writing. This story is at least on par with what the rest of the science fiction writers were writing in 1932. So he's writing at what at that time was an acceptable professional level. And the story it's not bad. It's structured well. The character's okay. I mean, everything about it is standard, but everything about it is done properly, I think, uh, for pulp magazines in 1932. Um, it's not one that today's readers are going to love much. They would probably hate it quite a bit, actually, because it's kind of dated, it's kind of old, it's kind of stiff. It's not what we expect today, but for 1932, this was at least finally getting up to being on par with what other writers were doing, as opposed to the earlier stories, which seemed kind of amateurish and poorly done. So now we just need Wellman to find, to take this level of writing and combine it with the level of imagination of his earlier work, and we should have something rolling here. We should have some fairly good space opera stories coming. So I'm expecting that to be coming up in the near future versions, in the near future stories that I read of Wellman in going through chronologically. While I enjoyed the story, I cannot recommend it. I I think the only people who would enjoy this are the people who really love that really early 1930s space opera, or people who are just diehard Wellman fans and have to read everything. Everybody else probably is going to find this a pretty dull read. That's all I can say about Rebels of the Moon. It's not, we're still not seeing Wellman at his best. But from that story, we jump to 1934. There doesn't seem to have been anything else in 1932, nothing in 1933, and nothing through most of 1934 until October of 34, when he published At the Bend of the Trail. Sounds like a Western, but it was published in Weird Tales, so I should be able to get a PDF of this story, if nothing else. And so, have you ever read Rebels of the Moon? I'm thinking probably not. But if you have, leave your comments. If you have anything else to say about Wellman, leave those comments as well. And I hope you'll come back and join me for At the Bend of the Trail and all the rest of the works I'm going to go through by Wellman and all the other authors that both I and Emily are making our way through in this story. That I'm really having a lot of fun doing this. I'm enjoying a lot. I'm rereading a lot of stuff that I have always loved, and I'm discovering a lot of things like this that I've never read, but it's from a time period that I've loved. I'm really enjoying doing it. So I hope you'll come back and join us for these. And till then, like this video, subscribe to our channel if you aren't already, and I'll be here in the next video.